أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So the topic that I wanted to talk about today was a topic that has to do with dealing with hardship, dealing with what can sometimes become, dealing with pain, but even on a deeper level where it becomes even to the point of possibly depression, and how really this life is not. I mean, of course, this life is not Jannah. This life will never be Jannah, and only Jannah can be Jannah. And that this life we know we will have struggles in this life. We will have to encounter loss in this life. We will have to encounter pain in this life. Things don't always turn out the way we want. But there's, I think what I want to talk about today is basically what I would say some advice that we're told by Allah and His Messenger of how to get through what we'll call maybe the struggle of this life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقيه, which means, O mankind, indeed, indeed, you are toiling, ever toiling, painfully toiling towards your Lord, but you shall meet Him. So first, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah is saying that it's almost like, when a friend is comforting you, and that friend comforts you by telling you, I know what you're going through. Like, I understand that you're struggling, understand what you're going through. And that's how she begins to comfort you, right? By just understanding, by just basically just sometimes acknowledging your struggle is enough to comfort you. To say, I see it, I understand, right? Almost giving validity to what it is that you're going through, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins here by saying, yes, you are struggling, you are toiling towards your Lord. Because what is the end to all of this struggle? Where do all matters end? At Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the end. And all matters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-awwal wal-akhir. He is the first, the beginning, there's nothing before Him, and He is al-akhir, the last. Everything goes with Him. He is the end. Everything is moving towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything ends with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the end. So when we are struggling and toiling, no matter what it is that we are striving for, it's still Allah, because Allah is the end. Allah is the final destination. But there is this ayah ends with hope. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends this ayah with is that you shall meet Him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this, by the way, Allah is addressing all of mankind. So sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran will address the believers, right? And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses all of mankind. In this ayah, He's addressing all of mankind. So it's talking that it's not just the believers who are toiling towards Allah, but everybody, all humanity is, for all of time, is toiling towards this end, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّكَ كَادِحٌ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ كَدَحًا فَمُلَاقِيهِ. The hope here is that you will eventually meet Him. And this is hope for the believer, that there will come an end to the struggle, to the toil, and it will be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, there's another ayah that I want to share with you. This is an ayah which personally has a very deep meaning for me personally. It's an ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I see it as a warning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us, He warns us from taking, He says, لا تدعوا مع الله إلها آخر. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning us from calling on an ilah other than Allah. Okay, so I've translated everything except for the word ilah, and then I'll talk about, and then at the end of the ayah I'll get to that. So the first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is He's warning us, advising us, do not call on an ilah other than Allah, And then Allah says, or, at the end of the ayah says, or you will be among the tormented. Okay. So usually when we look at an ayah like this, we might think, if we look at it from a very sort of surface way, you would see it as, don't worship a statue, or don't worship other than Allah. Otherwise, on the day of judgment or in the hereafter, you're going to go to hell. And that's definitely one meaning to this ayah. Obviously, this is true. But there is more to this ayah than just that. In order to really understand what it is, you have to understand the meaning of the word ilah. And when you look and you study the meaning of the word ilah, it comes from, every Arabic word can be broken down into 3 root letters, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you look at the root letters that make up the word ilah, you get a couple of meanings. One of the meanings has to do with finding shelter. One of the meanings has to do with finding refuge. One of the meanings has to do with basically having such a strong feeling towards something, that you just cling to it, you run to it. And one of the meanings actually is about a she-camel, like the baby of a she-camel, that when it's lost and then it finds its mother, and it's like nestled with its mother. All of these meanings to the word ilah are much different than just something you pray to. You guys understanding what I'm saying here? That it gives you the sense of a refuge, a comfort, of feeling so strongly towards something that you basically go to it because of the intensity of emotion. You seek it for comfort or for shelter. So now when we take this meaning of ilah and we put it back in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, don't seek refuge, don't seek shelter, don't seek ultimate comfort. Don't go to something other than Allah for these things, or you're going to suffer. And your suffering is not just in the hereafter, as we know. I mean, any of us who've lived in this life long enough know that when you seek something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you ultimate comfort, or you put your complete dependency on anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will torment you, it will let you down, it will hurt you. And this is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is like a universal law. And the reason for this is nothing else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ilah. And that's what we're saying when we say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. We're saying that we bear witness that there is nothing that can be an ilah. And now we've talked about this other meaning of ilah, in addition to obviously what you worship and what you pray to. But what you're seeking for comfort, what is your ultimate refuge? What is your ultimate refuge? That nothing else can be that except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so one thing is too that you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of His mercy, now this is what we also have to see. Imagine that I'm in a situation and I need help. I'm in trouble, I'm in a difficulty, I'm struggling with something, and I need help. And usually when we're in a situation like that, the first thing we do is we seek some sort of means from the dunya. All right? We might seek security. We want security, right? We want security, we want help, we want to hold on to something, we want to depend on something. Because we can't, and sometimes that thing, by the way, that you try to depend on is your own self, which is the same problem. It's the same problem. Because myself is also a creation and is also weak and also is not an ilah. I'm not an ilah. Okay? And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about people who take their own selves as an ilah. In fact, He says that they take their desires as an ilah. So this is also something that we need to avoid. Taking our own self, our own desires as an ilah. Similarly, taking anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an ilah. So what we do in this situation, we're having difficulty, we need help, we want to hold on to something, we want to depend on something, we seek security in other than Allah. So maybe we might start out by seeking security in our money, in our wealth. We might try by seeking security in our job. We might try to seek this in our relationships, in the people around us, in our parents, in our children, in our friends, in our spouse. Okay? We'll try to find this comfort, this thing to hold on to, this thing to latch onto. You know, you're climbing a cliff and you need to hold on to something. You need to, because you don't want to fall, right? And so what you do is you hold on to these other things. But what happens then when you do that is a lot of times those things will close. Those things will break, or those things will let you down. So you're seeking, for example, imagine that there are 100 doors to find shelter in, and only one door is the correct door. Every other door has a drop. Imagine that it's just a, you know, it's a fake. I mean, basically, you open the door. As soon as you enter the door, you fall because there's a drop. Okay. Now, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala knows this. We don't know this, but Allah Subhanahu wa Taala knows this. And by the way, He warns us of this many times in the Quran. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala knows that every other door other than His just has a drop. You're just going to fall. You're just going to break. So sometimes out of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's mercy, He actually keeps the door closed. You're sitting there banging and knocking on the door, trying to seek that thing, and Allah keeps it closed. This is Allah Subhanahu wa Taala closing the means. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will close. So maybe I'm having my trust, or I'm seeking, or I'm putting my hope in something other than Allah, and this is me knocking on the door. This is me trying to seek refuge and shelter in that thing, which is me knocking on the door. And out of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's mercy, He will not open that door for me, or that door will close for me. I can't, I'm trying, but I can't get to it. I can't get to it. Then I leave that door, I go to a new door. Another means other than Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Another person. This person let me down, I go to this person. I'm talking about people here because we're sisters here, and this is what we tend to do. We tend to, you know, other people, you know, men, I think their sort of their weakness is they try to depend on themselves, right? That's kind of where they get their sense of, you know, self-respect, and I don't need anybody. I can do it myself.
Or I provide for my family. It's my job.
Exactly. It's coming from me. I'm the one. So it's this idea of needing to feel self-sufficient, to feel autonomous, right? But it's the same trap. It's just another door. But for us women, we tend to depend on our relationships. We tend to seek other people as our door. So our door is other people. But guess what? So we go to one person, they let us down, we go to another. We go to another. We keep trying. This friend, man, they let us down, we go to this other friend. We try our husband. We try our, you know, our parents. We try one after the other, and each door is closed. Each door is closed. Finally, we've tried every single door. What do we do now? Now we knock on Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's door. Now this is the only door left. That's why we're going to it. That's why we're going to it, because we've tried all the rest and they're closed. Or maybe we tried it, we fell. Okay, we're not going to do that one again. Let's try this one. But subhanAllah, you see how Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala really, He protects us, and He, out of His mercy, He makes these other doors close. Or He makes these other doors hurt us. What happens when somebody or something hurts you? When somebody, imagine that you're extremely attached to something, and it's perhaps a rival with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in your heart. It's a rival with Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in your heart. What do I mean by that? You love this thing so much. It's your kid, it's your wife, it's your husband, it's your parents, it's your friend, it's money, it's status, it's beauty, whatever it is. You hold it very high in your heart. It has a very big place in your heart. Now, if Allah, you know, what happens if that very thing which you love and you're so attached to and so dependent upon, what happens when it stings you? Well, the first time it stings you, okay, you know, it kind of sort of affects your attachment, but it's all right. Then it does it again and again. If that thing, if something continuously hurts you again and again and again, eventually what happens to your attachment and your dependency on that thing? It weakens. It weakens, and then eventually it breaks, and eventually you may even turn your back on that thing. This is the dunya. The dunya, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and the creation, Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has designed it in such a way that if I seek the creation as a rival to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I seek the dunya in a way that I shouldn't, it will hurt me. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's design. It will hurt me in order to show me, it's not me. Like, it's not the right door. It's not the right door. Keep going. You're not there yet. You're not there yet. So it redirects me, and it redirects me towards the right answer. The right answer is only one, and it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's only one right answer. There's only one ilah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, لا تدعوا مع الله إلها آخر. Don't call on another ilah other than Allah. Don't call on another refuge. Don't call on another shelter other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you do, you will be among the tormented. It will cause you pain. And that, subhanAllah, that whole design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to push us towards the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that when I try to get too close or depend too much on the creation, it pushes me to Allah. And I'll give you a lot of examples in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation that's like this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation is such that from far away it's beautiful. From far away it's beautiful, and that beauty is a pointer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's beauty. Okay? So, for example, those candles right there. Like, from where I'm at right now, they're extremely beautiful. Right? But what happens if I get too close to those candles? They will burn me. Okay. The sun. The sun, the sunset, the sunrise, the sun is beautiful from far away. What happens if you get too close to the sun? Right? If the sun were even to get you guys, I don't know if you guys know about these, like, it's crazy. Like, if the sun were even just a tiny bit closer to the earth, what would happen? And they make like movies out of this and stuff, like, right? We would die. We would boil and to death. Okay? The stars. The stars are very beautiful from where we're at, from far away, right? The creation. But when you get close to a star, what is a star? It's like gas, burning up gas. I mean, you can't get close to it. A cloud. A cloud, okay, so like if you travel and you look at these clouds from the airplane, and it's so beautiful. It cannot, you can't look at a cloud with the right mind and not say subhanallah. It's beautiful. It's, they look, and that's beautiful, right? They're fluffy. She says they're fluffy, but it's an illusion. Because if you get, what happens if you get too, you go into so you're in the airplane, from far away, it's fluffy, it has shape, it's beautiful. But when you get into it, it actually disappears because it's nothing. Yeah. SubhanAllah.
It looks so solid.
It looks so solid.
Thick and dense.
Perfect.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's a mirage, really, right? You get to it, you get into it, it's actually not really there. SubhanAllah. The idea here is what? That the creation, it's beautiful from the outside. It's intended to be beautiful from the outside, but it's intended for a certain reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ, and the alteration of night and day, لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. That in these things, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. These are indeed signs for those who reflect, for those who have albab. Albab, ulil albab, basically those who have a mind and who use it, who think, who reflect. All of these things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts beauty in are a sign for those who reflect. That fire is a sign for those who reflect. The sun is a sign for those who reflect. The ocean that you guys, we live just like minutes away from is a sign for those who reflect. A sign of what? A sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A sign of Allah's greatness. A sign of Allah's beauty. A sign of Allah's oneness. But let me ask you this. What happens if you can sit on the shore and you can look at the ocean and you can say, MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar. That ocean is beautiful. But what happens if you get too close to the ocean? What happens if you enter the ocean? That's when you drown. You guys feel me? So the creation, this is the nature of the creation. And I'm giving you guys these are metaphors, but I'm telling you guys this because it will happen with all of the creation, including other people, including human beings, including relationships. when you take your relationships and you try to depend on them, you try to get too close in a sense, and you try to basically put somebody at a place where only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be, either in your love or in your dependency, that will be your source of pain. It will torment you, it will hurt you, it will let you down. And through that process, that's when you are pushed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So never think that that process is necessarily bad. That is a purifying process. It is essentially a liberating process. Because what you're doing, what's happening through that process is you're being liberated of your attachments to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're being pushed towards the ultimate attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So in the context of depression or in the context of hardship, pain, struggle, I want to encourage you and myself to see it in a different light, to see the disappointment, the struggle, the loss, the pain, all of it. I want to ask us to see it in a different light, to actually see it as a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and as a purifier from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to clean my heart of anything else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because our hearts are full of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our hearts are full of dunya. We are full of dunya in our hearts. And through these hard times, that's when we're purified. And there's a really beautiful quote, it's a Rumi quote, where he says that when somebody beats a rug, the beating is not intended for the rug, it's intended for the dirt inside of the rug. Now, when we go through hardship, that hardship is not intended to hurt us, is what I'm saying. It's not intended to hurt us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more merciful to us than a mother is to her child. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want pain for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want to hurt us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to clean us, wants to purify us, and wants to liberate us. And so we are full of, again, we are full of these attachments, these chains, but that's exactly what they are. They keep us chained to the dunya, they keep us chained to people, and it's through these sometimes sort of these hardships or this pain that we are purified. If you think about the process of gold being purified, what do you do to gold to purify it? The thing you do to gold to purify it is you heat it up. You heat up gold in order to remove the impurities from it. And subhanAllah, even in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about hardship, He says, لِيُمَحِّصَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. And the word يُمَحِّص, tamhis, means, it's like the same word that's used for the purification of gold. It's that heating up. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses that exact word and in saying that the hardship, when we send hardship and tribulation, this is what it does to the believer. Tamhis. لِيُمَحِّصَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. But this is only for the believer. For the believer, hardship is a purification. And so it is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a punishment. It's not, we shouldn't even see it as something bad. But we should see it as something that is actually elevating us and something that is bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it says that the matters of a believer are strange. And the reason why the matters of a believer are strange is because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that everything for a believer is good for him. If something he dislikes, some hardship comes to him, he's patient, so it's good for him. And if something that he likes, something, good, in parentheses, in quotation marks, something that he likes comes to him, he is grateful, so it's good for him. And this case, he emphasizes that this is only the case for the believer. So you see that the situation for if you truly are a believer and you truly seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then no matter what happens in your life, it is good for you. Imagine that. Imagine a situation where no matter what comes your way, it's good for you. The reason why it's good for you is it brings you nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And let's think for a second, ultimately, what's our goal? All of this dunya is passing away. And in the end, what's going to determine success or failure? The only thing that's going to determine success or failure is where we stand with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us, we've succeeded, and it does not matter how or what happened in this life. Right? You guys with me? I mean, let's just break it down. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the road, after all this dream is over, right? One example of this life, it's like a dream. You wake up from it, you look back, and you say like, oh, it just lasted just such a short time. Similarly, when we wake up from this life in the hereafter, and the people ask each other, how long were you in that life? We say, yawman aw ba'da yawm, a day or part of a day. This life, when we look back on it, will feel the same way that we look back at a dream. A day or part of a day. The idea is what's going to determine whether we succeeded or whether we failed. It's not going to be by how many days we were happy or we thought we were happy. It's not going to be by how much money we had. It's not going to be by how many people we had around us, how many people liked us, how pretty we were, how thin we were, what we looked like. None of these things are going to determine anything. All that's going to matter is where we are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to us on that day that He's pleased with us. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us on that day that He's pleased with us, then nothing else is going to matter, right? Nothing else is going to matter. And it's going to mean that we succeeded. So we need to look at our life in this way. Everything that comes to us, if we are believers, it's hard, it's a loss, it's whatever it is, if it's bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is good for us. And so long as we keep our eyes focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever happens to you, whether good or bad, it will elevate you and bring you nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And see your hardships, your hardest times, as your time to be purified and to be brought closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And to make your dependency, your attachment to Allah stronger, and your trust in Him, to build that tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you look at one of the other things that I really recommend is for all of us to do is to study the stories of the prophets, because the stories of the prophets are told to us for a very specific purpose. They're told to us because they have in them very deep lessons for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never just tells a story because He's a storyteller. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us a story in order that we gain something from that lesson. Okay? So when we look at the stories of the prophets, did any of them have easy lives? Did any of them have easy lives? No, they didn't. So one can never say that if Allah loves you, you're going to have an easy life, because then that would contradict that. The prophets all had the hardest and the biggest hardships. And so one can never think that, oh, I have this hardship, it means Allah is not happy with me, it means Allah does not love me. That's from shaitan. Because that would mean, a'udhu billah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't love His prophets. They were tested the most. And in fact, the Prophet ﷺ said that when Allah has hub for someone, when Allah has love for someone, He will test him. He will send him trials. Now the question would be why, right? Why? The answer is what we just talked about. Because it is through those trials that people are purified, that people are elevated, that people become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is through those trials. And in fact, this is the case even for the prophets. Let me give you one example. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he couldn't have a child for a long time. Finally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a child, right? Basically, this was the thing that Ibrahim alayhi salam loved most, his son. So if there was anything that Ibrahim alayhi salam might become attached to, or may possibly have been any sort of, any possible rival in the heart of Ibrahim alayhi salam with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would have been him. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him to slaughter his son. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just yes, he's testing him, but I think we limit the meaning of test to as if it's a multiple choice test. Okay, here's a test, are you going to choose A, B, or C? Wrong answer, right answer. It's deeper than that. It is not just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see what you're going to do, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also training you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also purifying you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also giving you through the test. He's not just asking you. So don't ever think a test is just, okay, I'm going to get the right answer, I'm not going to get the right answer, and that's it. Move on. Like we take a test in school. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the test is actually giving you. He's actually blessing you through the test if you pass the test. If you pass the test, you're elevated. If you pass the test, you're purified of your sins. You're purified of your whatever it is in your heart. There's a part of it that's purified. That anything that could possibly be maybe veiling you between you and being a veil between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this case, Ibrahim alayhi salam, yes, he's being tested. What is he going to do? But beyond that, there's something deeper here. By being able to slaughter that thing which he loves most, being able to do that, what's he doing? He's breaking his attachment or any possible attachment that he could have had to anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he did that, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, no, you can keep it. Because now, subhanAllah, now the gift is no longer in the heart, it's in the hand. The gift is now in the hand. When the gift is in the heart, it will cause a lot of pain. It will cause a lot of, when something is put in the wrong place, it's going to wreak havoc because it's in the wrong place. When you take the gifts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you take, your family or your health, your beauty, your money, your status, all of these things, and instead of having them in your hand, you put them in your heart, it's going to create a lot of problems for you because you're keeping it in the wrong place. Those very things which you have in your heart that are not supposed to be there are going to be the cause of your pain. They are what's going to cause you the most pain. That very thing that you have in the wrong place. Okay, your money itself, your status itself, your family themselves. Okay? Until you take it out of the heart, and now you can get it back, you can have it, but you keep it in your hand now. You love it, we love our families, we love, to be beautiful, we love to be young, we love to have money, we love these things, these are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never to deprive us of His gifts. He is Al-Kareem, He's the most generous, He loves to give gifts. Al-Wahhab loves to give gifts. But here's the thing, if that gift, He gives it to us, it's going to corrupt us, it's going to make us dependent on the gift instead, sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes it away. He takes it away out of His mercy. And in this case, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he's in a sense taking away, asking Ibrahim alayhi salam to cut that, basically break that attachment, take it out of the heart, and now when it's returned, it's in the hand, his own son. Because that was the, and then after that, when we talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam, we talk about Ibrahim's tawheed being the purest. When we talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam, it's Ibrahim alayhi salam and tawheed. He was Hanif. He was the one who had the pure monotheism. Because, he went through this process. It was a process. And that's the thing, is it's a process. Even with the prophets, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trained them. Musa alayhi salam, same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trained him. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Look at his life since the time he was born. Everyone that he could possibly have become attached to, what happened to them? They died. They died. So you look at him from the time he was born, one after another. We learn this story, I remember when I was a kid learning this, okay, for this person died when he was this age, and then this person died and we don't understand the significance of this. Why is this happening? It's just a story. I just remember, it's just a story. But when you look back and you reflect on this, why? His father died before he was born, then his mother died when he was born, then his grandfather, then his uncle, and then even Khadija, right? Every time there was somebody who, and look at, subhanAllah, so beautiful. What happens when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes something away from you? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes something away, He replaces it with something better. And what did he replace? Think about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. In the year of sadness, this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took two things away from the Prophet ﷺ which he loved most. His uncle and his wife. And both of them, don't think this is a coincidence, both of them were the ones who supported him. So you see the doors closing. Remember we talked about the doors closing? Now he can't depend on, because these are the things that he depended on. These are the things that the people who supported him, now they're both taken away at the same time. These doors closing. So what does Allah give in return? Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. The night journey at that same time. So think about it. Think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives more than He takes. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes in order to give. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala withholds in order to give. In this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, He took his wife and He took his uncle, but He brought him up to Him, to such a level that even Jibreel alayhi salam couldn't go that far. So you see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He takes away the means, it's in order that He can give you Himself. And what is anything else? All we want is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That's all we want. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes closes doors in order that we can seek Him more, completely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Idkhulu fi silmi kafa." Enter into security completely, kafa, completely. But sometimes we can't do that when we're scattered. We have part of ourselves in this, part of ourselves in this. Our heart is all over the place. Our heart is full of other things. So we can't really give our heart completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wishes good for a servant, He tests him. By taking away those things, you are left with just, a pure sense of just tawheed, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the right answer. That's the actual, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, that whoever holds in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's handhold is the handhold that never breaks. Every other handhold, everything else we try to hold on to will break. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى لَا انْفِصَامَ لَهَا. That whoever disbelieves in falsehood, or other than the truth, and believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, puts his whole faith and iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى, that he has indeed held on to the handhold that never breaks. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only handhold that never breaks. And sometimes we go through hard times in our life, we lose things, we hit, we feel like we hit rock bottom. But this is not what it seems, is what I'm saying. That rock bottom is sometimes just part of the path. It's just one stop on our path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will find that you can use rock bottom to make yourself so much better, to make yourself so much stronger, and to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that you couldn't do anywhere else other than rock bottom. Think about the story of Yunus alayhi salam. Yunus alayhi salam was the one he was the Prophet alayhi salam who he left his people before he was commanded to do so. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded that the whale/fish swallow him. And so Yunus alayhi salam is now trapped. He's in the belly of the whale, right? Darkness upon darkness upon darkness. I mean, you have the darkness of the whale, you have the darkness of the ocean, you have the darkness of the night. I mean, imagine this situation. You'd probably consider this rock bottom, right? I don't really think there could be more rock bottom than being in the belly of a whale. You guys feel me? Mm-hmm. Okay. We are never going to get to a point, right, that's any lower than that, any harder than that, right? That's what I mean. And when he's in that situation, look what he says to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dua of Yunus alayhi salam, in fact, we're told that we should say this exact dua when we are going through hardship. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. This dua of Yunus alayhi salam, he says, La ilaha illa anta, back to this original point that we started with. There is no ilah other than you, subhanak. You're high above High above what? High above everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is high above every other thing in my life, including my own sadness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is high above my own struggles, high above everything else in my life. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. Indeed, I was among the wrongdoers. So look at what Yunus alayhi salam is doing here. First, he acknowledges Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the place Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, his place, his greatness, and then he recognizes his own mistake, his own sort of humbleness in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Look at the humility. This is how we get out of hardships. This is how. This is in this dua is the prescription. You recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you humble yourself. You realize, one, your own, kind of like where are you compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like your own lowness compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then your need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That in this place that you're at, in fact, the purposes of hardship is to make you realize your need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's called tadarra. You know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He gives different reasons for hardship. And we talked about one of them. We said, لِيُمَحِّصَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا تَمْحِيص. Tamhis is that process of, like you would purify gold by heating it up in order to remove the impurities. That's tamhis. That's one of the purposes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives in the Quran for hardship. There's another one, and that's tadarra, something called tadarra. Two different places. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَضَّرَّعُونَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَضَرَّعُونَ. Tadarra, the concept of tadarra is when you are not just humble in front of Allah, not just helpless in front of Allah, but completely humble and helpless in front of Allah. And if you really want to understand the concept of tadarra, you have to imagine a person who's stuck in the middle of an ocean. And while they're in that situation, a storm comes. And this is a storm that brings, like the waves that are like mountains, and you are completely and utterly alone in the middle of that ocean, and you have no one to call on. And then you call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that situation, how would you call on Him? In what state would you call on Allah? That's tadarra. That's tadarra. We don't normally reach that state when we're on shore. We have to first be put in that situation to reach that state, right?
Yeah.
So Allah is saying that we send hardship to help them get to that state, to help them get to tadarra. Because what's so beautiful about tadarra? That's what it's just you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that state. That's what's so beautiful about tadarra. Because when you're on the shore, you're not as close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not as desperate and just clinging for dear life, because you don't realize that your need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you do when you're in that.